When running a campaign with evil characters, one should always be careful with its direction. There are always lines that can make certain players or even your DM walk away mad, never to return. Make sure everyone understands beforehand what can happen and what the tone of your game will be. Digging into darker topics can lose you a few players here and there, but done properly it can make for some memorable D&D stories.
Hello and welcome to another D&D Stories. I am your host, TheWriter, and this is the show where we sit here and I regale you with all the tabletop gaming stories and remember when something really cool happened. So, we're starting a new campaign today called Enter the Labyrinth, also known as TheWriter steals from a whole bunch of movies and mushes them together to make something fun. But hey, a lot of campaigns get inspiration from books, movies, TV shows, where you just take an idea that looks so damn cool that would make for a great campaign. I couldn't help myself. So, this took place, gosh, I think 7 or 8 years ago. So I have this notebook here full of notes in case I keep like looking down and you want to know why. It's because I keep checking my notes because a lot of stuff happened in this campaign. And it was a little bit complicated to talk about from start to finish without having any notes. So I've got a couple of pages of stuff here. If you hear me shuffling around, that's what that is. So the concept for this campaign was a sort of Running Man sort of game. A contest of people that have been sentenced to death for whatever crimes they may have committed, and should they succeed in this contest, they can go away scot-free and have their records erased. Now, what is this contest? Well, it's a labyrinth. All you have to do is escape the labyrinth, and you get to go free. And, they'll give you food, money, and water and send you on your merry, and your record gets ripped up, and you can leave a free man or woman or whatever. And it's treated almost like a medieval game show, one that's so popular that even the gods watch, because the labyrinth is huge. So huge that it can't be watched directly by like people in bleachers. They have like crystals that are set up at different points above the walls, so that they turn like security cameras, so you can watch people no matter where they are. And they basically drop 100 death row inmates in there at the same time, and if anybody comes out alive, hey, congratulations. And if not, hey, we've got 100 more. This is to make sure that the dungeons don't get too crowded, that the death row inmates don't sit on death row for 20 years like some nations I could name. And that we keep the wheels of justice turning, but the wheels of fate and chance still get their say. So the cogs in the great machine are all turning all at the same time, and we're whipping through people to make sure everybody who's had their day in court and has been sentenced gets their sentence, but also gets a chance to get away. So it's kind of sick when you think about it, but hey, it's better than sitting in a big stone box for the next 30 years wondering when the guy with the axe is going to come and put you over the chopping block. So at least this way you've got a fighting chance, right? Right. So let's meet our contestants. This was during the time when I was in the Gamers Guild. Again, still during the era when I was trying to teach as many people as I could how to play D&D. Sometimes I would even just like take their character sheets home and do the updates for them so they didn't have to worry about it too much. It was a lot of damn paperwork for me, but they ended up being very strong, very talented players very quickly, some of them. But again, you probably already know I'm sick of teaching people how to play, and I like to play now. So Let's meet our 4 players, shall we? First, we had a Furious Ming, master of the closed fist monk fighting style. He was sentenced to death row because he took over his master's fighting school and encased him in a magical crystal, never to be released alive again. That probably sounds familiar to a few video gamers out there, but that was the story he brought to the table. We have Sunded, the Wanti sorcerer, known for sacrificing innocent people over altars in the name of his dark Wanti god, whether it be the Ouroboros or whatever. It's got a name. I just call it the Ouroboros because it's a snake god. We have Zalus the wizard, who has been dabbling in a little bit too much of the necromancy as of late and was caught digging up corpses in a cemetery and animating them into zombie and skeleton minions in order to burn down a town that had wronged him. And then we have Liner, who is a small bronze dragon. And this was very unusual because I told everybody, hey, this is basically going to be an evil campaign. Look at all these monster races you've got to choose from, because we're playing, I think it was D&D 3.5. And I go, hey, you've got all these monster races. If you're going to do like an evil campaign, is there anything you guys would like to be? So we ended up with 2 humans, a Wanti, and a dragon, which is funny. But if you know anything about level adjustment, even if they started at like 10th level or whatever it was, they started pretty darn high. So no, I guess this wouldn't have been a brand new group, would it? We started pretty high. This would have been veterans. Oh well. This was 8 years ago, so pardon my bad memory. The level adjustment for a bronze dragon is really high. It's somewhere between like 5 and 9, I think. So you have to give up all those levels before you can take any class levels if you want to be a dragon. And he's a very small dragon. He's like the size of a corgi. So, he's not going to go head-butting through the stone walls or anything. He's probably just going to, take up residence on somebody's shoulders like a big cat or a pirate's parrot or something like that. But turns out that Liner, the bronze dragon, was falsely accused and was sentenced to the Labyrinth before anybody could dot all the I's and cross all the T's. That was kind of the weakness of this system, is that there's no waiting and there's no like second day in court where you can contest the sentence like so many people in the real world contest their death row sentence like 9 times and then they die of old age before they see the electric chair. No, these guys, once they've decided that you're a murderer or a necromancer or whatever, they just throw your ass into this labyrinth. So Liner's day in court did not go so well, and being as small as he was not able to escape. So they threw him in a big metal crate, and he got tossed into the labyrinth as well. So he's got 2 levels in Cleric. Now, being that they're, between level 7 and level 11, having 2 levels in Cleric doesn't do them a lot of good because the magic is so low level that it's not going to make a huge difference. But it's better than having to buy potions, and how are you going to buy potions in a labyrinth? Well, you're not. So it's best to have a healer of some description along with you. And, how do you bypass this sort of situation? Oh, falsely accused. And how do you prove your innocence? What say you? Cure light wounds. Oh, he must be innocent. He still has his powers. No, he didn't get the chance to do that. So, also of note, this campaign happened before the Hunger Games, and it came out before all these like Maze Runner movies. This was like 8 years ago, very long time. I used to have like this big like printout of like 20 pages of stuff that would happen at every session where I would like type it up and post it on Facebook or something, so that when we came back the next week we could kind of go over what had happened last time, but I lost it. I don't know what happened to it. It's probably hidden in a file somewhere, and if I ever find it again, I'll try to post it up on the D&D Stories Facebook. But until then, all I've got is my memories and this little packet of notes here. So if I miss something, then it's just my faulty memory. Now, so we begin our labyrinth excursion with everybody in separate cells in a great circle. So you can imagine how big this circle is if they've got 100 different spaces for 100 different dudes. And that's just that's just kind of the size of the batch of people that they send in. You basically get, a 5x5 cell with a cot and a toilet and like a jug of water. And that's where they started, and they had bars over over the exits. And we're all sitting around this table, and I go, okay, so before you are released into the labyrinth, each of you finds a scroll on the table next to you explaining the rules of the labyrinth. Each and every one of you, for better or, truly or falsely accused, has been sentenced to death by whatever government you were a part of, whatever dungeon you were sentenced to. You were offered up basically to make space because crime is rampant in whatever region you're in, and they're just freaking purging people at this point. The labyrinth is eating death row inmates at an astounding rate and supplying entertainment to the masses. And yeah, it's sick, but it works. So they're scaring people into following the law and getting rid of you at the same time. So all you have to do once you are released from your cell is escape the labyrinth. And if you do, you'll be given a bag of 100 gold pieces and food and water and clothes, and your records will be torn up and you will walk away scot-free. Now, obviously, the labyrinth is protected. You can't just teleport out, and the walls are indestructible, so no, you can't just, jump up on top of one of the walls and hopscotch to the end. You actually have to go through the labyrinth. You get players that are too clever for their own good, I fly through the dungeon without touching the walls or the ceiling or the floor, so it doesn't set off any traps, right? And I just circumvent the whole damn thing that our DM spent so long trying to put together. Nope. Feet on ground. And as per usual with my campaigns, I didn't allow spider climb or fly or dimension doors. You have to go through the labyrinth. So if you cheat, it's not going to help. Or it's not going to work, one of the two. So that is your goal, and on top of that, each of you is given a riddle. And if you can solve that riddle, you can start with a magic item. And they go, what kind of magic item? And I said, basically a random magic item. It's going to be, roll on a chart what body part it's for. Roll on a chart, it's for your head. Roll on a chart, it's a helmet. Roll on a chart, what kind of helmet. It'll be completely random. But hey, it might be useful for you, so we'll have to see. Here are your riddles, and I don't remember what the riddles were. They were, word play or toothpicks and arrange them to spell 10, but in Roman numerals instead of letters, and just different stuff like that. I tried to make sure they weren't too difficult because I wanted them to start with something because, they're prisoners. All they've got is, belts and butt flaps, and they don't even have shoes at this point. So it's like starting out in Legend of Grimrock. You're basically naked except for a butt flap, and poor Liner doesn't have anything at all because he's a dragon. Oh, and before I go any further, bronze dragons I think have 2 breath weapons. They have repulsive gas, which drives people away, and I think their other one is lightning or something like that. I'll have to look that up later. You see how much preparation goes into D&D stories. I didn't even look up what breath weapon dragons have. I'm sure somebody in the comments will tell me. But they go, okay, you've got these riddles. If you can solve them, you get a free magic item, and you have 5 minutes. And I pulled out this little egg timer I had, or not an egg timer, a little sand hourglass that I had when I was a kid. My dad didn't think that I spent long enough time brushing my teeth, so he got me a sand hourglass that when you turned over, it would last 3 minutes or 5 minutes or something like that. Way longer than you than any kid would sit and brush their teeth. But I kept it, and I still have it somewhere. But I turned it over and I said, okay, 5 minutes to solve your riddles. Ready, go. You can throw out as many guesses as you can. And unfortunately, none of them got their riddles. I don't remember what riddles they were, but they just couldn't get them. I said, okay, you don't start out with anything special. All you get is like, burlap pants and some shoes so you don't stab your feet on the rocks when you're walking through the labyrinth. They go, ah. I go, meanwhile, you look out into the great room where your 100 cells are arranged in a circle, and you find yourselves looking at a great big pile of just junk. There's crates and boxes and barrels and cabinets and wardrobes and chests and piles of clothes, and you can see rope, and there's a grappling hook hanging off the end of that, and there's some wind chimes, and there's some working man's gloves, and there's like a mattress over off to one side, and pillows and blankets and just crap. But there's a lot of containers out there. And while you're kind of looking over it to see what it is, and you see why I mentioned the Hunger Games, because, this was the cornucopia. But again, this campaign predated the Hunger Games. So when I saw the Hunger Games movie, I was like, oh, that's what happened. So, the host of the Labyrinth, the guy that runs the whole thing, is an elven gentleman called Bela Lugosi. And yes, he's named after Bela Lugosi, the guy that played Dracula. But that's because I'm bad at coming up with names. Now, Bela Lugosi has a speaker's rune on his neck, so when all he has to do is touch it, and it's basically like having a microphone. His voice booms out over everyone. And he goes, welcome to the Labyrinth. This is your last chance to get away and live a normal life after having committed crimes punishable by death. Ladies and gentlemen, and there are women sprinkled throughout this 100. Dragons, there's Wanti, there's elves. It's a mixed bag of 100 people in 100 cells, and just imagine how big that kind of complex would be. And it's got a labyrinth around it, so that gives you the grander scale of things. And he goes, the labyrinth is riddled with monsters and traps and a time limit. Those of you that don't get out by spring, well, you won't need to worry about much of anything. And they go, by spring? And they go, when is it now? And I go, it's mid-fall. And he goes, he thinks we're going to live in here for like 6 months? What about food and water? And he goes, good question, I heard you over there. This is the initial junk pile that you're going to get your supplies out of. Now, I would not make this a completely unfair game, otherwise this labyrinth would just kill everybody, and that wouldn't be very entertaining, would it? And he gestures and he waves up to one of the security crystals. The masses and the common folk are watching you from those crystals. So be sure and put on a good show for them. Ha ha! But this initial pile of junk here, there's chests and wardrobes and clothes, and there may be even a few magic items amongst all this crap, so make sure you look thoroughly. Ha ha! And he turns about and he gives a bow to the crystal where everybody's watching, and he goes, let the 100 and... I don't even remember what it was. The 100 and something season of the labyrinth begin! And he waves his hand and all of the cells spring open. And I look at my players and I go, you better hurry, because there's 96 other people here, and they're going to be pouring through this stuff too. And immediately a 100-man brawl breaks out, because there's guys like throwing hat racks and throwing open chests, and oh, that's ladies under things, and there's belts and clothes, and oh my god, I found a loaf of bread. Ah, boom, got knocked over the jaw, and that guy took his bread and ran off. And, oh, a silver short sword, that's all I need. And he takes off towards one of the exits to go out into the labyrinth, and some people are finding like boots of expeditious escape, and oh, there's a guy that found a cloak of elvenkind, holy crap, and he throws the hood on and he takes off, a belt of ogre strength, and he picks up a wardrobe and crushes the guy next to him so he can steal the battle axe that guy found. It's Pandelirium immediately, and my players kind of wade into this, and I go, okay, so we can sit here and fight 96 people, or you can just roll on the D100, see if you find any items, and see if you take any damage. And they're like, okay, we'll do that. Because as we all know, D&D is not meant for large pitched battles. So it's like there's a fight going on in the background. You've got a chance of maybe fighting some people in the foreground. So I go, roll me fate. Roll me that 100 percentile. And they get some regular things. They get nicer clothes. They get a couple of weapons. They get some potions. Belts to hold up their butt flaps. They get boots that are a little nicer than the bandages they've got around their freaking feet and things like that. Except for Zalus the Wizard. Zalus the Wizard rolls like a 99 out of 100. And when I wrote like the chart of 100 things that you could find, it was like 98, 99, and 100. You could get a magic item, but you would get 2 of that exact same magic item. And Zalus goes, well, what do I find? And I go, well, like I said, it's random. So I roll the dice and I consult the chart, and I'm like, okay, it's a ring. And he goes, yeah, magic ring. And I roll the chart again and I go, okay, it's a ring of wizardry. And I immediately wince because I know what a ring of wizardry is. A ring of wizardry is basically extra spell slots. And the wizard just happened to roll a 99 or a 100 or whatever it was. And he got 2 rings of wizardry. And that meant basically every day when he's like preparing his spells or whatever, I gave him a spell book for free because, if you didn't, he wouldn't have anything to study. He got 2 rings of wizardry, so every day when he studied for his spells, he would just get 2 extra spells, and they were higher spell slots than he had access to at the time, so he could basically put any spell that he had up there and just have 2 extra spells forever. And I was like, well, that was really fucking lucky. But okay. So they get like basic starting supplies with their rolls, and Zalus walks away with like 2 magic rings, and he never took them off for the rest of the campaign because they never found anything better than that. Screw your fire resistance. I've got 2 extra spells. But Zalus gets the rings, and they're like, okay, we separate and kind of cordon off towards an exit. And I go, okay, you form like a cell, a cell of 4 people. It's like, it's not a bad idea to make friends. If there's 100 other people here that want your stuff, it's not bad to like form a gang or form a group or a cell or whatever and kind of watch each other's backs, because you gotta sleep sometime. And if there's 96 other dudes in here that'll stab you as soon as take your shoes, it's not a bad idea to make friends. So that's how the dungeon party happens. They agree to watch each other's backs and keep each other alive, and perhaps they will escape the labyrinth as a group, which would be a first. Now, Bela Lugosi, of course, has disappeared because he's not going to be a part of that freaking brawl that happens. He was standing up on one of the wardrobes and he just kind of disappeared into a sparkle of fairy dust because he's an elf, and that's what elves do. I don't know. But while they're wandering, they go down a hallway and they go this way and they go that way and they go this way and they go that way, and they go, okay, are we making any progress at all? And says, you don't know. The walls are 20 feet high, and the hallways are 10 feet wide, and you have no idea how big the labyrinth was because you've never seen a map of it or anything. So you have no landmarks or anything to go on, and all the walls look the same. And again, it's kind of like Legend of Grimrock. All the walls look the same, so it's hard to tell where you are. And sometimes they emerge into rooms that have riddles in them. Like, here's a room that has a portrait of an old man who's scowling fiercely, and the only way to open the door is to make the old man smile. And so Furious Ming goes up to the portrait, and he grabs the portrait's edges and he turns it upside down so that the scowl looks like a smile. And the rotating gear behind it opens the door, and they're like, oh, that's clever, huh? We move on. Then they get into a fight with a mimic in the next room, and it's just random dungeon rooms. They don't really mean anything. They're just trips and traps and monsters to kill the weak, but they've got a group of people together now, so they're working together. They're going through these rooms, and they're like, gosh, we might actually make this work. So, and they've got a devoted healer. They've got a borderline necromancer. He may as well be a necromancer. I know necromancer is actually like a prestige class or whatever, but Zalus really focused on necromancy. And I'm sure you could be a necromancer by the time he arrived at whatever level he was, but we didn't really think of that at the time. So Zalus the wizard, who knew necromancy, Furious Ming was punching everything that got in his way, and Soon Dead, of course, was slinging the lightning bolts and the fireballs, because those are the best 2 damaging spells in the game. Now, eventually they come up to an empty room, which is, of course, instantly very suspicious, and there's a door this way and a door that way and a door that way. And as soon as they enter, the door behind them shuts, and they can see like the moss and the grime that's between all the stones that make up the walls kind of burn away, and they can see a ghostly presence kind of melting through the wall and then out into the floor, and then through the floor and up through the ceiling. And it's just like, it doesn't pay any attention to the walls, but the moss and grime is like eaten away, burned away, as though like a pressure washer were going over the whole thing, or a gelatinous cube that doesn't pay attention to the laws of physics. And they go, what is that? And they hear this horrible voice kind of echo above their heads, and they learn that this entity is called the Tidy Monster. And it kind of gibbers and rants and raves for a while. And you can look up the inspiration for the Tidy Monster on YouTube. Just like search Tidy Monster. It was an old CGI like short film about a guy going crazy in a room, but the room warps and changes according to however insane he feels at the time. You can go see it after you watch this. But the Tidy Monster, they kind of figured out over time, was an entity that didn't have to obey the walls of the labyrinth. It could shift and move and change as though they weren't there. It was ethereal, at least on some level, much the same way a displacer beast is. It could displace, but it was amorphous. It was like a big blood cell. It would move around however it wanted. And whenever it touched anything that wasn't a part of the labyrinth, say a bit of moss or some garbage or a person, say, it would consume them entirely and leave the clean stone behind. So that is why, the labyrinth has been going on for X number 100 years, and there are no bodies. There are no skeletons. There are no blood stains anywhere. It still looks brand new because Bela Lugosi has this Tidy Monster who wants nothing more than to just eat everything that isn't stone in the labyrinth. And they kind of back off. They don't say anything. They don't attack it. They let it go on its merry way. And in its insane gibberings, it mentions a person called Heidi. And it says, "Why the specter of Heidi hiding?" And it seems to morph and kind of look about, almost like the boss from the water temple in Ocarina of Time. It's just this shapeless thing. It doesn't have a face. It doesn't have eyes. But it's searching for whoever this Heidi person is, because apparently she's hiding from him. And they go, hiding, or Heidi. You know, that's an awfully particular name. Were there any women in the prisoner's circle? And he goes, and I go, yeah. There was a handful. You know, women can just as easily be sentenced to death as men. And they go, oh, okay, well, gee, I hope there's not like some of these women get caught by themselves and get gang raped by these guys that are on death row anyway. And I go, well, that's possible, I guess. That's really dark. Freaking Soondead, I swear, Soondead took everything to the darkest route possible. And he wasn't even our necromancer, but like the first thought in his head is, oh, there are women here? I hope they're not getting gang raped. Okay. Anyway, after a while, the tidy monster has cleaned the room, and the party kind of like moves about to get out of its way while it's cleaning, and then it moves on through the walls and out a certain direction. And they go, okay, well, we know it's there. We know what it does. We know it speaks, so it's at least partially sentient. Let's not leave a trail of garbage behind us, because God knows what'll happen if we touch something like that. It won't be a good day for us. You know, anybody not wearing 15 million sunblock or whatever is going to have a really bad day. So they rest for a while, and then they move on through the labyrinth. And they don't really run across any big creatures or monsters until they wander across a battle that's already taking place between a brother and sister and a giant stone golem. And the sister has been injured badly enough, and she's like on the ground holding her arm, while her brother valiantly fights this stone golem with a sword and shield that he got somewhere. Now, what they did to end up on death row, there's no telling, but maybe the two of them killed somebody. But they ended up here together. And this stone golem is kicking his ass. And gosh, I already gave it away. This girl's name is Heidi. They have found Heidi straight away. They're like, oh, the tidy monster was talking about this girl. And she sees them come in and goes, please help my brother. My arm is already limp from striking stone with a freaking spear. I've sprained my wrists and can't fight as well anymore. And we'll go over into Soondead's mind now. As I've said, he always goes straight to the darkest stuff. Off to one side, you remember I told you that the gods watch the Labyrinth game show, or whatever you want to call it, the Labyrinth event, just like the masses do. Soondead's god, the Ouroboros, or whatever you want to call it, decided to intervene in the Labyrinth and give him basically subquests. Now, why him and not my other three players? Well, the guy playing Soondead was not especially bright at the table, so I thought maybe give him a chance to get some extra magic items or something so he wouldn't die. Because I fully expected him to die at some point in the campaign. So basically I would like secret him scrolls and say, at some point during session 1, do this and you'll get like a blood draining sword, or sometime during session 2, do this and you'll get like a bandana of wisdom, and again, just like random magic items that would hopefully help him stay alive. It did not work out for the best, though, because the first mission that the Ouroboros gave him, if you remember, he was sacrificing people on an altar, so spilling blood for the blood god, Ouroboros. The first mission that Ouroboros sent him on this tiny little secret scroll was to spill a virgin's blood. Now, in my head, I'm thinking, oh, that's simple. You can ask your party members, even like Liner. Liner is a very small dragon. He's probably a virgin. Just like poke him in the shoulder. There, done. Or you can say, oh, I'm a virgin. And just like slash your shoulder real quick. Hey, spilled a virgin's blood. Good job. Here's your blood draining sword or whatever. I promised him something outrageous for the first mission just to kind of get the ball rolling. And blood draining swords are they're like vampire blades. However much damage you do to somebody, you gain that much back in health. And that was me trying to keep him alive because I knew he was probably going to die because he's not very smart. So I promised him like a bloodletting longsword or a blood draining longsword, whatever those are called. If he would spill a virgin's blood, and he saw Heidi, and the first words out of his mouth are, I'll help you if you, or the first words out of his mouth were, are you a virgin? And I roll the 50-50 chance because the answer is yes or no. And she goes, yes. And she goes, I'll help your brother if he'll sleep with me. And I go, wow, okay, that's not even, technically, but Jesus Christ, man. And, I can't say anything because I am the voiceless narrator, but, she's this desperate girl in a desperate situation in this hellhole of a labyrinth. And she goes, all right, just help my brother. And so Soondead steps in. The rest of the party does not because they are disgusted with him. And they want to see if the stone golem will just crush him and put him out of his misery. But Soondead is a mighty sorcerer, and he conjures up all the powers of his blood god Ouroboros, and breaks the stone golem into a bazillion pieces with a mighty blast of a fireball and a few other choice spells. So, and we can kind of see the party off to one side. Oh, it didn't kill him. Damn. But the brother, I forget his name. Let's just call him David. David is, of course, furious with his sister for what she promised this gross snake man for his services, but she is honor-bound and his hands are tied. So Soondead, being about as subtle as a baton to the face, takes her by the wrist and takes her into the next room, which was, strangely enough, a supply room, which I had, sprinkled through the labyrinth. It was a supply room full of, crates and desks, and it was basically a smaller cornucopia of items for them to go through. And he bent her over a crate and hiked her skirts. And I go, well, Soondead is over there. Jesus Christ. David converses with you to see what you know about the labyrinth, to see if you have seen anybody die yet, because there are 100 prisoners here in the labyrinth. And, no, they haven't seen anybody die yet. And he says, well, I've seen at least 6 deaths. My party was a group of 8, and only my sister and I escaped alive. And of course, over to one side, Furious Ming already has a tally going. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people out of 100 are already gone. And he wants to keep track because, once there's nobody left but them, assuming, because they're the quote-unquote heroes of this campaign, the labyrinth will focus its attention on them. So they want to escape before they're the last ones left, because by then all eyes will be on them, whether it be, the bystanders watching the entertainment or whatever's in the labyrinth, such as the tidy monster. So as long as there's stuff to distract all the monsters, they should be okay, but when they're the last ones left, it's not going to be very fun. So, Meanwhile, in the next room, Soon Dead finishes the deed and, of course, spills her virgin's blood and, wipes the scroll up between her legs and throws it to one side. And the scroll bursts into flame and turns into a vampire sword, or a blood-stealing sword, or whatever you want to call it. It's got a name. I know it does. Somebody will tell me in the comments. It's a life-steal sword. And he goes, at last, and he picks it up, and it's like a black Daedric sword. It's black, but it glows red, and it's all badass, and it drains health and all that stuff. And he turns his back on his victim and emerges out into the great room where everybody else is, where the pieces of the stone golem are, where they're all talking, and he's like redoing the front of his pants, looking quite proud of himself. But then again, he's an altar sacrificing, Wanty blood sorcerer, or whatever you want to call that. And what he does not notice is that Heidi is looking through all the crates and stuff in the supply room where he just took advantage of her. And I'm rolling on the charts while Soon Dead is like showing off his new sword to all his buddies. Yeah, I could stab you with this, and all of your vitality would flow into me because I am Soon Dead, blood sorcerer of the Ouroboros. Ah ha 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 ha. Meanwhile, behind him, Heidi went through one of the crates, and I was rolling on the charts. She found a rapier, and I don't remember if it was like Vorpal or if it was some kind of burst damage rapier. And she snuck up behind him, and you roll like the passive perception or the passive listen or whatever. He failed entirely, and she stabbed him through the back, up through the rib cage, and through his heart. And he instantly died. Like, he took catastrophic damage immediately, and just like fell to his knees. What happened? And he's like touching the rapier blade. Who? What? And then she pulls it out, and she kind of puts her foot on his back and shoves him straight onto his face. And Soon Dead was dead because he's soon dead. Ha 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 ha. We all got a good laugh out of that. Soon Dead was soon dead. And he was dead like within 3 hours of the campaign starting. Like, he had no chance with this girl. And the party kind of stares at her because, she killed, what was it, a level 7, a level 9 character with one attack. So clearly she's got some levels in Rogue or Assassin or something. She is not to be trifled with. Honor bound, though, since she let Soon Dead do all that gross stuff to her. But she takes her brother by the shoulder, and they start making their way out. And they go, wait, you could stay with us instead of this blood sorcerer or whatever. It's like, I'm not staying with you guys. And she, one of you smells of death, and the other of you is clearly, a dragon, and one of you. And she takes her brother, and they rush through the door, and they slam it behind them, and they use a door jam, a door stop, or a door triangle, or whatever you want to call that, to shove under the door. And, by the time they kick their way through it and get the door busted down, they're long gone into the labyrinth. They could have gone anywhere. And there is a silence over the party, and they go back and they're like, well, Soon Dead is dead, dibs on his stuff, and they run and they pillage his body until he's just naked. And they go, this is the labyrinth. We never know when we're going to see, food or water or any kind of items again. We pick it clean and, lay his body to sit in a corner. Furious Ming, that's 7 people out of 100 that are dead. And he goes, okay, he marks down the tally. And they're kind of poring over his stuff, trying to decide who gets what and where. And Bela Lugosi, the host of the Labyrinth, appears before them, just in the room. And they go, it's Bela Lugosi. And they pull their weapons, and they've got their fireballs ready. And he goes, friends, I bring you good tidings. And he kind of gestures with his hand, and a large treasure chest appears next to him because you guys, the ratings have been great. There's been violence and sex and backstabbing and murder. The crowd is loving it. The gods are watching. This is going to be the best season of the Labyrinth we've ever seen. Please take this treasure chest full of supplies and keep on keeping on. And he's having way too damn much fun for the grim setting that this has become. In the meantime, though, because Soon Dead was killed so quickly, I have a player at my table who has no character now. But there are, 93 people in the Labyrinth, so he can just pluck a person and put him in with our party, and, that person can keep playing. So he brings Vince, the assassin, to be our fourth party member, and I didn't know. I was like, I forget what the guy's name was in real life. I was like, man, you made 2 character sheets, because he reached over and pulled it out of his backpack. He was like, yeah, I knew, I always die in your games and stuff. Your bullshit one shot from the back. I was like, you raped her. I was like, bullshit one shot from your back. From the back, I had a second character ready just in case. And I go, okay. He brings out this assassin character. So he made a sorcerer, and knowing that sorcerer would probably die, he also made an assassin. So he sets this assassin out, and we get a look at him. He's dressed in all black, and he's half elf and all this stuff. He's an assassin. Trained in longbow and double swords. Thank you very much. So Vince the assassin joins the quest, and Bela Lugosi leaves them where they be, and they pour through the chest. Oh, what happened to that guy? Well, he raped this girl, so she impaled him from behind. Oh, that sounds bad. It was bad. Welcome to the Labyrinth. Shut up. So while they are picking through this treasure chest, Liner, our bronze dragon, of course, can fit inside it. So he goes digging through all the stuff first, and he finds the shiniest object that he can because he's a dragon. He finds a puzzle box. And this is the puzzle box from the Hellraiser movies. It's the, I forget what it's called. It had a name, I forgot. But I was using inspirations not only from Running Man, but from the Hellraiser movies. So he finds the magic puzzle box, and there's like 8 or 9 Hellraiser movies. Also very good and worth watching. But, let me see. Sorry, I have to check my notes again. Yeah. So, having found some treasure, some extra items, some extra weapons, some food and water especially is what they need, because days can go by and they cannot find anything. They decide to rest for the night, and Liner, having found the shiniest thing there, tries to solve the puzzle box, but is unable to. His little clawed hands are too small to play with it, because it's like a 4x4x4 cube, but it's got buttons and little screwy things all over it, and it's covered with hieroglyphs, and it's clearly magical. Perhaps whatever is inside will help them, because puzzle boxes usually have like scrolls or magic stones or small things that are of great value inside, surely. They do kind of balk at the money a little bit, though. Where are we going to spend this money? Oh, well, we best keep it with us. If we emerge from the labyrinth victorious, surely we'll be able to keep whatever money we found, so they pocket the money, too. They find a bag of holding to keep all their food and water in, so it's not just sloshing around for anybody to see and decide to jump them. Finally, who is it? I think Vince. Vince takes the puzzle box, and they're rolling like their use magic device and stuff. And strangely enough, Zalus, our not necromancer, doesn't have a lot of ranks in use magic device, but for some reason Vince does, which which to me, I'm not really sure. I don't tell people what to do with their skill points, but an assassin with use magic device says that he specialized in a lot of weird stuff, but we didn't know what it was yet. With his use magic device bonus and a nice high roll, he opens the puzzle box, and immediately everyone is sucked inside. Like they get zapped with magical, like ethereal rays of God knows what, and they shrink down and they are sucked inside like a funnel straight into the side of the box that was dripped open and into darkness, and afterwards it slams shut with all of them inside, and they fall through the ethereal void uncontrollably until they all land on their sides and on their butts in front of a pair of caves. And what they did not know, what none of them knew about, was that inside this puzzle box was a little something called the Tomb of Horrors. Now, if you don't know what the Tomb of Horrors is, it was basically a campaign, or not a campaign, it was a module made way back in the day in D&D's history that was designed to just chew people up and spit them out, like borderline unfair. Like you would make 10 character sheets when you showed up to try and do this place, and none of them knew what the Tomb of Horrors was, and I wasn't telling them what it was. I said, you arrive in front of 2 caves. And they go, well, I guess we're going to have to go inside. And that is where I will stop for today. It looks like the Labyrinth has some much worse traps than just what's inside the rooms themselves, because if puzzle boxes are going to the Tomb of Horrors like teleporters, it's going to get a lot worse. So, I hope you will join me next time. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I will see you on the next D&D Stories. Keep gaming.
Hey guys, thanks for watching. I really love telling D&D stories, and I also really love eating food. So if you'd like to toss a couple of gold pieces into this humble bard's hat, be sure to check out my Patreon. If you enjoyed this story, be sure to hit the like button as well. And if you'd like access to maps, character art, and channel updates too, check out the D&D Stories Facebook. Keep gaming!